Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first issue of Why Am I a Nerd presents Wud Up Comics, where each and every week we get together to talk all things comics. From old to new, fan theories to what-ifs, we've got you covered. My name's Camryn James, and joining me today, as always, the golden voice of podcasting, Matt Ferreira.
How's it going, Internet?
What's going on, dude?
Chill, man. Ready to jump in. What do we have on the docket today? We got Maximum Carnage.
We do.
A review of one of the more classic books, I'd say, in Spider-Man's lineage, if not one of the crazier ones, at least.
Fair enough. I mean, we'll get into that because I don't really know how I'm still trying to figure out myself how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we definitely need some things to break down there.
We're going to figure out why movies don't cast characters the proper way.
Ever.
Touche on that, as well as we'll break down, will we ever see a new breakthrough comic book hero or villain based on everything that's going on in the world right now?
That's definitely a good one.
But before we get going, just wanted to let everybody know briefly about what exactly we're going to be doing here at Why Am I a Nerd. So Why Am I a Nerd is going to be a podcasting network where we're going to have a bunch of shows for you guys from, as I said before, sports, music, comics, video games. We're going to do everything we can to talk about it, and it's not going to be any sort of really news site. We're going to try to stay away from that. You can get news online if you want. So we're going to just hear and bullshit, talk what we want to talk about, and, have a good fucking time with it and, call it a day.
Hell yeah.
So let's get right into it with Maximum Carnage. So this is written by Tom DeFalco, J.M. DeMittis, Terry Cavanagh. I think I might have said that right.
Cavanagh? I'm not sure.
Is that how you say it?
And David, this one always gives me, it's David Michelini? Listen, I just read the books. I don't know how to pronounce the authors' names.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. And they all come from pretty good work. It's funny here, Batman and Spider-Man: New Age Dawning. I haven't read that yet. I don't know if you have.
Actually, we should probably discuss that next time because it's your favorite superhero, or I'm sorry, your favorite rich individual with my favorite superhero. We should definitely put that up for discussion next time we meet.
Yeah, especially because that's definitely going to be an argument that we'll have.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we always do.
Because, if Batman gets sued by the IRS halfway through the issue, what happens? That's just...
Look.
If they impound the Batmobile, what's he going to do?
I don't know, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day...
So borrow some money from Alfred? Alfred's going to dip into the 401k? What's he going to...
Hey, he came from a good background, so... But that's a whole different topic.
That's
a whole different story. But all right. So anyway, Maximum Carnage is pretty much... It's a 14-part comic crossover published by Marvel Spider-Man Family, title of 1993. It features Spider-Man, Venom, and a host of other superheroes teaming up to face Venom's murderous offspring Carnage and a team of supervillains.
Now, the funny thing is, I remember, I was young when this came out. I was very young. But I do remember reading it once I got to be, 10 or 11. It was terrifying to me, because Carnage is a scary character. But the fact that he got this whole group of supervillains to fight along with him, and they're literally just slaughtering people through New York, and the best Spider-Man can do is get Venom, Captain America, and a group of C-list characters. And Captain America shows up damn near at the end. It is a terrifying concept, and there's parts of it that are ridiculously confusing as they are terrifying.
And that's a good point, because that's definitely what I wanted to talk about when I read this. Because I remember I told you I wanted to read it, and you were like, yo, it's kind of strange. And just so everybody knows listening to this podcast, if you have not read Maximum Carnage, there will probably be spoilers in here.
There's 100% going to be spoilers. I would say this is more than probably.
Yeah, right? I just want to let everybody know. I mean, if you haven't read it and you want to, take a fast forward.
You've had 17 years, but it's time to, put pedal to the metal, really get this book. And it's available on Barnes & Noble, free plug to Barnes & Noble.
It's actually hard to get into Barnes & Noble. I tried getting it the other day, so I had to get it from some other lovely website. Oh. But the big thing about this book, for me, that completely threw me off, in the first 5 fucking pages of this book, Peter Parker's parents aren't dead. So for 31 years of my life, his parents are dead. He lives with Aunt May. Uncle Ben's dead. That's how it's been. When I read that, I literally said to myself, someone fucked this up publishing this.
Do you want me to fuck it up for you even more?
Please, because as far as I'm concerned, recording this, they're in a goddamn concentration camp, and it is fucking... Whatever it is, it was
all right,
so out there.
It's revealed, I don't know how many issues after, but relatively shortly after Maximum Carnage wraps, that they're not actually his parents. They're very high-grade synthezoid robots, I believe developed by Norman Osborn, simply for the purpose of fucking with Peter Parker. So imagine that. Imagine being that level of billionaire and petty. They're like, yo, I fucking hate this kid. But you know what? He's an orphan. Let me dedicate all this money to building robots exactly like his parents just to fuck up his life for a little bit.
Okay.
Like, when you put it in that perspective, it's outrageous. Like, that's a true supervillain right there. Like, that's completely outrageous.
And I think that's I don't really know how it came about, because again, the thing with this graphic novel as well that kind of threw me off is, and I kind of have this pet peeve with a lot of graphic novels, is, again, I'm a Batman guy. That's who I read most of. That's kind of my knowledge. So when it comes to Marvel, I know my way around Marvel. I know how to talk about it. I know most of the origins, all that what stuff. But a lot of this book too, I feel like if you don't know certain characters, they just show up, and you're just kind of like, what? Like,
Yeah.
who is this? Like, right off the bat, I didn't know this. I don't know if Harry Osborn was married to MJ at one point. I mean, I noticed that it says in one of the
They
Spider-Man
dated
issues
at one point.
did.
They might have gotten married. That part's a little hazy for me.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of a confusing thing to me. Again, coming from not really much of a Spider-Man guy, other than the movies and the video game. They definitely throw some characters at you, as you said earlier. Because you have Team Spider-Man is pretty much Spider-Man, Venom, Cloak and Dagger. Which Dagger's whole thing to me was
It didn't make sense to me either, where it's like she's gone and then she's not gone.
Yeah.
But she comes back like kind of more powerful, but it's like the harmonious energy or whatever. Like
She's
the
like the
positive
light.
feelings. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, and then you have Black Cat, Morbius, Firestar, Iron Fist, Deathlock, Captain America, and Nightwatch, who's totally a Spawn
Nightwatch
ripoff.
is a Spawn ripoff. And the one point I was going to make about Black Cat was she was, even by comic book standards, wildly underdressed. Like in the early 90s.
Yes.
Like if you remember any of the clips of her, like, borderline teenager me was infatuated with every single issue Black Cat was in. Because even though it's a cartoon, I'm waiting for a titty to pop out half the time because she's not wearing a damn thing. But a lot of these people really had no business in this fight. Like, when you look at it, like, Firestar makes sense because symbiotes are weak against heat. Like, that's one of the first people I'd look at. Oh, and another thing that's important to note for those, just tuning in, not too familiar with the book, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the New Warriors, who are, the B-list team the New Warriors are as far as super teams go, were completely unavailable for most of this crisis. So people in the streets in New York are getting slaughtered. Eddie Brock reads this in like a newspaper or something in San Francisco, literally has time to fly across the country to get back, but the Avengers can't come back from Mars or whatever they're doing to defend the city they call home.
Yeah, and then they show up at the end.
Yeah, at the very, like, when it's over. Like,
yeah, that was the thing. Because then you have, like, Carnage's team, who's him, Carnage, Shriek, Doppelganger, Demi-Goblin, and Carrion, I guess you say it?
Yeah, and, like, these guys are another set of, like, Doppelganger I had to look up because it drove me crazy when I was a kid because I was like, who is this? Why does he just look like evil Spider-Man? And that's literally exactly what it is.
I think he had 4 arms.
He had 4 or 6. He might have had 6.
We had legs.
Yeah, was it the legs? But I think it's 8 total, like a spider.
Is it?
I think that was the thing there. Yeah, but the whole thing was apparently Adam Warlock, when he was Magus, created him during the Infinity Wars. I had to look it up because it drove me insane. I was like, where did he come from? And why is nobody alarmed by this guy that looks like just an evil version of Spider-Man? Like, nobody was like, oh my God, it's Spider. Oh wait, no, it's not. It's just them, like, what was like a doppelganger.
Yeah, they kind of threw that in, and like even with like Demi-Goblin, I guess you'd say.
Demo-Goblin. There's too many. That's another thing I want to point out right now. There are far too many goblins. At one point there was, there's obviously Green Goblin. Then I'm just going to call Harry Green Goblin Jr. just to differentiate. There's Hobgoblin. You've got Demo-Goblin. Yeah. And then at one point there was also Proto-Goblin. Like, there's entirely too many. Like, how often have you seen a goblin in real life? Come on. You got this many just floating around New York. They've all got gliders. They have the exact same technology, like in shenanigans.
Well, the best is the Demo-Goblin thinks he's an agent of heaven.
Well, he looks exactly like an agent of heaven with that, terrifying face, the goblin name, because all goblins come from heaven. Like, there's some of the logic in this. The 90s were a crazy time for comic books. And some of the logic with the way they did their characters was like they were trying to go too big, and at the same time, it wasn't thought out enough.
I agree.
Yeah, where it's just like they had these lofty ideas and no way to carry them through. And I think that's kind of what happened with Demo-Goblin there. And another, actually, we should cover this in a future one, is the Clone Sagas. Let's say Clone Wars. I've been watching Star Wars.
Oh, God.
The Clone Saga is an absolute mess, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I started reading, not to get too off topic, like, after reading Batman Year One, I was on DC Universe, and I was like, yeah, continue by reading, like, the Dark Knight Legends series. So I started doing that, and some of that stuff from the early, 90s and late 80s is just like, all right, like,
what is happening? And super wordy, too. That's one thing that,
yeah,
it's crazy to me that now they can still tell the same quality stories with so many fewer words. Like if you try and go back and read, this is getting very off topic, but if you go and read, even well, Maximum Carnage too. But I was going to quote, the Infinity Gauntlet saga. Like it's so wordy. You're basically reading a novel, and there's like a picture sprinkled in. Like there's not that I'm complaining, but
Right.
like when I'm looking for that medium, I'm more for the artwork.
I agree.
Than I am for the actual.
I 120% agree on that. And like so getting back on topic too, like some of the stuff in this, and like I said, I saw this too in some of the Batman Dark Knight Legends stuff is like it kind of feels like they just like threw these random things in there. Like people in New York all of a sudden just start going crazy and like killing each other and robbing stuff, and you're just like, what? And then you find that Shriek's like transmitted rage and hatred out of people.
Oh yeah,
and everyone's just going
everyone
nuts.
in New York was just going nuts, which again alarms me to like, where the hell were the Avengers? Like this is the kind of thing they should have been on top of too.
Yeah,
Spider-Man actually. This entire series, it's important to note, Spider-Man's battling with a set of broken ribs. For like he gets jumped
right away
in the very beginning because like he's not expecting that many people to be there. So he gets jumped, gets beat up, breaks his ribs, but being Spider-Man, being the true hero he is down to his core, goes back out, keeps on battling. But then an important thing that I always thought this was messed up, where it's in the park towards the end of the series, it's Spider-Man and Venom versus Carnage. And Spider-Man, even though I think he's too altruistic because he stopped Firestar and he stopped Venom multiple times from killing Carnage, which would have saved everyone a great deal of trouble.
Well, he didn't really stop. Firestar kind of stopped.
He
her
like talked her out of it,
like,
kind of.
I
Yeah,
can't
it's like
do this.
he's like, don't do it, and it's like, she should have though, just incinerated him and been done with it.
Yeah, that was like midway through too.
Yeah, but towards the end though, Spider-Man tries to get in between Venom and Carnage, and Venom like backhands him, and Spider-Man's like, and I broke the other half of my ribs. Like, that's a shit day.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, the ending of this, we can get into in a little bit, I thought was kind of just like predetermined. Like when they get to that final fight and you see the generators, and you're just like, all right, here we go. Like I can kind of figure this one out. But, then I forget when this happens or something. They get Mr. Fantastic makes that ray gun thing, whatever.
They steal it from the Baxter building, right? Yeah, they have to have like
the first
whatever.
gun.
Yeah,
they take two. So the first one, then you find out that I guess Venom's getting his ass beat at some point. He gets kidnapped. He's getting his ass beat by Carnage.
Yeah, when he's getting tortured in the Statue of Liberty. Yeah,
wherever he was, and then all of a sudden you find out that he put a piece of his symbiote suit in the gun
to stop it from firing and killing him. Which is like, what? Like, when did you have time to do that? Like,
I don't remember that.
The symbiote is literally a shenanigans engine. I'm gonna throw that out there. Although I just thought about something. All right, I'm taking it way back here. I forgot that the comics were retconned recently, and that the Thor villain Gore the God Butcher, he has all black the Necro Sword, which apparently is closely related to the symbiotes. Like it's like the progenitor of symbiotes created that sword, and I just realized with the next Thor movie potentially having Gore the God Butcher, I wonder if that's going to be some kind of like off-key setup for Spider-Man getting the symbiote in the MCU.
Is that when he hits the black suit?
Yeah.
Which I think
that might be worth looking into. I didn't think about that till just now.
Well, he gets, not to get too off topic again, I think he gets that suit. Isn't he wearing that suit in Craven's Last Hunt? We talked about
It's
that
not the symbiote. It's just for a while after he gets rid of the symbiote, he just wears a straight up black outfit.
Which is definitely something we're going to talk about hopefully next week.
Yeah.
But, then again, further talking about, as we mentioned before, with Dagger's storyline. So she kind of gets disintegrated in the beginning of the book by Shriek. She just like, Shriek, I guess, produces light or some sort of weird energy source.
Yeah,
just,
she's got some weird shit going. They don't really dive into her backstory to kind of piggyback off what you were saying a little bit earlier. Shriek? Like, she's just kind of there, and they're just like, all right, this is...
She wants to fuck Carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really strange. But anyway, so pretty much Dagger's disintegrated. And again, I don't really know much about Dagger, but she does have almost the same outfit on as
Black Cat.
That's Black Cat, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But then this whole time, you find out that Cloak is still able to do his things, and he makes subtle notions throughout the book and little comments like, I shouldn't be able to do this without Dagger. So I'm like, all right, she's not dead.
Yeah.
So
like
she must be somewhere.
Their powers are weird, but they're very intertwined. Like, they counterbalance each other.
Are they married? Are they like boyfriend, girlfriend?
I guess they're kind of dating, but I don't know how official it is in the comics, because they're kind of B-listers. Like, they have the show on Hulu. I think it was Hulu.
I think
nobody watched.
I think it got canceled.
It was like one of those, yeah. It was one of those, it was too obscure. Like, you got to introduce them the right way if you're going to do it. But I know them primarily from this, but they started showing up in more more medium shows, things like that recently. Like I think they're in one of the animated Spider-Man shows.
I haven't seen that, but I know, like I said, I know. Again, I mean, it's not on. Obviously, it's not on DC Universe. That's the best,
You're really gonna say DC Universe is the best app right now?
We're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. Anyway, anywho, but that's what. So then you find out that Dagger's pretty much bitch moaning and groaning, and he's in like a church. He's in a church complaining about something that blah blah. And then you find out that she became the light essentially, and she just like resurrects herself.
Yeah.
And just shows up out of nowhere, and she's like, hey, pretty much this whole time she was living in Cloak's cloak.
Yeah.
Which is the dark dimension.
Yeah.
And she's just, I guess, hanging out in there. And somehow, they don't really ever explain how she gets out of it. She just kind of shows up
just like,
again.
Poof, here I am. And so the weird thing to me with a lot of these comics is that, like, this is 14 issues, and it ran through, I think, like 5 different titles. So I think when you have that many writers on one thing, it's very tough. It was 4 different.
4 different writers. No, 4 different writers.
Oh, 4 different writers. Yeah. So it's tough to kind of get full. I don't know, to get like a straight line going with your narrative. So I think some people took some liberties and they're like, they probably just decided, yeah, Dagger's going to come back. And whoever wrote that in was just like, boom, and she's alive in a plume of light, whatever. And then they just went with it. Like, I think there was so much going on kind of in an effort to sell books. Because in the 90s, that was a lot of what they did. They're like, okay, like, we'll have this story carry across multiple titles to, pick the sales up for each one. Because like Marvel had, I think well documented issues in the 90s. So
and they even, I mean, they still do that nowadays too, which drives you nuts. Like, I bought the Dark Knight Metal series, and it came in like 4 different graphic novels. I had to Google it, and it's like, okay, read chapter 1 of Dark Knight Metal, then do chapter 3 of Dark. It's like all over the place. You're just like, what? And it's like, it's sad because if you tried to read Dark Knight Metal just straight up, you're going to be like,
what is happening?
Yeah, like why are these people showing up? And that's kind of what happened, I felt like, with this graphic novel as well. And it's actually a topic I wanted to talk about at another episode. Like when graphic novels, like what's the difference between a true graphic novel and just taking a bunch of issues and chucking them together?
Yeah. Like an anthology, I guess,
yeah,
technically.
That kind of gets a little strange. And then we get to the end of this, and pretty much, Venom pushes Carnage into generators. It blows up. Carnage is pretty much half dead on the ground.
Yeah.
Venom just like gets himself off and
gets himself off. Like, take that, Carnage, and then he escapes into the night.
he jumps on the back of a pickup truck and rides off into the sunset. And Spider-Man's just kind of like, whatever. And they weaken Carnage by getting another ray gun type of thing, which this thing threw me off. It was a ray gun from Stark Industries that projects the feeling of love and hope into villains.
Made no sense. Like, how do you even begin to build something like that? Like, how do you even, like, that drives me nuts with comics. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it projects love and hope. Like, how is that? Can we get one of those made for real? Like, I feel like it's
yeah, I don't really know where they came up with that. Again, I didn't think it fit in.
It was a very shenanigans ending, but they needed something to tie it up. And there was probably no other realistic way, sort of like Black Bolt or another sound or heat-based, hero showing up to weaken Venom. To weaken Carnage. There's probably no other way they could have beat him than to have a shenanigans weapon like that.
Well, because Firestar is not even a part of that. She's a part of the what's her crew?
She's technically part of the X-Men, isn't she? She's a mutant.
I thought she was a part of like the Warriors. Maybe.
Oh, she could have been. She might have been in the New Warriors at the time.
At something like that.
You might be right about that. Yeah, she might have been part of the New Warriors.
Because that was I think they just canceled that, or no, maybe. Or they ended it. I forget. Something just happened recently in news where we'll talk about how Marvel cut a lot of their smaller stuff. But just getting back to this. I mean, in my opinion, was this the best graphic novel I've ever read? I mean, absolutely not. I mean, it definitely wasn't.
It's a little incoherent at times. I'll say. I think it's entertaining. Yeah, I think it's definitely a more classic story because it's like shit really got out of hand. Like it really got out of hand. Like they had a very good chance of losing for a very long time because Carnage is a nut job. Like as far as scariest, most insane characters, he's definitely up there. He's actually based on one of your favorites, the Joker, was 100%. Part of their idea. Yeah, which I don't know how that's going to work in the movie. I think Woody Harrelson's a great actor. I don't know how they're going to cut out that role for him. But we'll see how that goes.
Do you think that again, I saw the Venom movie maybe like half an hour of it, and I was like, I don't know, like
It was not for me. There was moments where I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I think I hate that there's this trope with almost every superhero movie that they're just fighting the opposite of themselves. So like Venom's fighting another symbiote. Now in this new movie, he's going to be fighting another symbiote. Like they got to mix something else in there to kind of really get that to work for me. Like I want to see him fight something different. Like if Spider-Man was fighting another Spider-Man every single movie, I'd be getting pretty bored. It's a good thing he has a diverse character, you know what I mean? Like, sweet to dive into.
Well, do you think that they portrayed, and this is actually a good lead into our next topic here, do you think that Venom was portrayed properly in the movie? Because to me, in my opinion...
Which movie? Are we talking about Spider-Man 3, or are we talking about...
We can get into that in a second. You know, because to me, like, when I read Venom in this, he's kind of like a wise ass. He's kind of like witty.
Yeah.
And so him and Carnage have almost, to me, the same wittiness and the same, like, wise
Carnage
ass, smart ass.
Yeah,
remote,
like,
you know.
Venom's like what's cool to me about Venom is, and then in this is perspective like that I have, he should never be separated completely from Spider-Man. Like, it's tough to differentiate the two because the whole reason Eddie Brock was able to bond with the symbiote was their mutual hatred of Spider-Man. And once they did so, and they could evade his spider sense, which is hands down his most incredible power. Like, that's the most important one he has. Otherwise, he could just get his ass kicked.
Which he does.
But we'll start with that. Hold on, with your money bag shenanigans, Cape Man over there. I gotta remember that. No, but like Venom would creep up on Spider-Man, just show up in random places, which is even more jarring because he's like, "You're my worst enemy. You're stronger than me. You're faster than me, and I don't know when you're going to show up." Like that is terrifying for someone who usually knows when they're about to get jumped or when something bad's going to happen. So that's what made Venom cool to me, always growing up. Carnage has the same attributes, but he doesn't care about torturing Spider-Man. He just literally wants to murder everyone. Because at one point, he had a messed up childhood. At one point in the book...
They talk about that,
yeah. Yeah, he talks about, like, he goes to his childhood home. He talks about how his mom killed his dad, or his dad killed his mom for trying to kill him. Which I remember as a kid, I was like, I had to read that, like, 3 times. Like, what? That happened? Like, what?
Yeah, then he got, like, picked on in school or something cheesy.
Yeah, which, like, don't pick on... Listen, kids, if you're watching this, do not pick on potential serial killers. Like, buy that kid a pudding pack... Whatever you can, do whatever you can.
And apple juice.
Apple juice. Give him your lunch. Don't let this kid murder multiple people like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that it'll be interesting to see how they pull it into the next Venom movie, which, like I said, ties in well to our next topic. Is to me, I think that when it comes to comics and movies, it doesn't always turn out right. I mean, obviously, Henry Cavill just re-signed to do Superman again.
Which I'm a fan of him. I like Henry Cavill in the role. I really do. I do think I might be in the minority on this. I think the Superman that we got at the end of the current cut of Justice League, because I know the Snyder Cut's coming out. I'm sure we're going to have, in about a year, we'll have another episode about that.
Yes.
I think that's the most true to form Superman that we've seen in movies so far, in terms of they had the CG up to par, like the actor looked the part, and he really played the role. Like when he's fighting Steppenwolf, he's like, all right, this is kind of a joke to me, like he's not nearly as strong as me, and he realizes Flash is trying to save all these people, and he leaves the fight to save the people that need help. Like that is the truest essence of what Superman is. Like if he's chasing down Brainiac, he's gonna stop to help the kid who's stuck in a tree on the way. Like that is, he's supposed to be a hero through and through, and that's what we got at the end of that Justice League movie that Snyder and Whedon co-directed. I don't even know what to call it.
I mean, Snyder says he only did like a fourth of only a fourth of his stuff is in it, but yeah, it's weird how sometimes they pull it off. I'm very vocal about this. I tell everybody I do not like Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne or Batman. I'm not a fan of it.
All right, so let's get into this. Hold on,
but pretty much, and that kind of goes to this. Some of the key movie characters that I didn't think, and I kind of did some research on who definitely wasn't done well. You have the number one, which everyone knows is Deadpool in X-Men Origins.
Oh, God.
Then you have Gambit in X-Men Origins, which I'm a big Gambit fan when it comes to X-Men. He's my favorite X-Men next to Wolverine, and I don't know. He looked like a magician on.
You know, I got at least what they were. I understood what they were trying to do with Gambit at least. Like I got it. Like Taylor Kitsch was that actor at the time. They're like, he could blow up. Let's try and get him in a role now. I got what they were trying to do. Deadpool to me is completely inexcusable because Deadpool is the merc with the mouth. And at one point they say, like what's his face Stryker is like, oh Wade, you'd be the perfect mercenary if not for that mouth. And next time you see him, they're like, oh, his mouth's sewed shut. I'm like, why? And he's got the katanas in his arms, which makes zero sense just ergonomically. Because what's he walking like this all the time? You can't just have katanas sheathed inside your arms. You can't bend your elbows or anything. It made no sense.
There's like what's his name, Baraka from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, like but like longer. He's got Cyclops' laser eyes. Like it was so poorly done that I can't believe anybody who's ever read a comic book was in the room when that happened. Like, it was just like, yeah, this is our Deadpool. Because even Ryan Reynolds, if you go back and look at any of the interviews for that movie, he's kind of despondent about it. He's like, yeah, sometimes you just got to make a movie and you got to follow what the director says. And then the movie came out and everyone's like, oh, that's what he meant. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, it was interesting, call. And like I said, I was not a fan of the Gambit at all. I thought it was really, again, it looked like a hybrid of some weird magician. Again, like I said, he didn't even, I don't even think he had the accent.
It was half-assed.
Yeah.
It was like there sometimes that it was like honestly, what it reminded me of was Halle Berry in the first X-Men movie, where sometimes she has a very pronounced accent and other times it's not there at all.
I mean, Halle Berry also played one of the worst comic book.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna get someone to play Storm correctly for a while. While we're on the subject of not casting characters well, I don't think Halle Berry was right. This new girl didn't really bring anything to the part to me.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
and that's that's like what I was saying before. Like when it comes to like you have these guys that for since the late 20s, early 30s, like they came up with these characters, they drew them. You know what they're supposed to look like. This is what they're supposed to look like. This is what, as a comic book reader and a graphic novel reader and a fan of obviously comics, like you want to see what you've read on paper into film.
Yep.
And then these film, directors and writers, and no disrespect, like why change something that's already so well known to pop culture? The new Harley Quinn, I despise the way she looks because Harley Quinn does not have tattoos all over the place.
Yeah.
She's not looking like this this
like thought basically, yeah,
type
like
thing, and then like with the whole like Joker thing and Suicide Squad, I don't understand where people come up with these ideas of like, let's change, let's tattoo them all up, let's make them look like this.
And it's funny you brought up Suicide Squad because she's really kept the image from a movie that DC, I feel like, has tried as hard as they can to walk away from. Because Suicide Squad was mildly entertaining, but the movie itself makes zero sense.
It was an action flick.
It was an action, but even so, like at parts, like the team disbands and then they're immediately back together in the street. Like Captain Boomerang, at one point while they're in the bar, deciding like, oh, we're not going to do anything for Flag anymore. Boomerang walks out, and then they're walking down the street just after deciding they're going to work together, and Boomerang's just back again. Like he just randomly, he wasn't even there. How could he possibly know they were teaming back up again?
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that bothers me. But yes, her looks are very off. They went off kind of the deep end with her and Joker's look, and yes, they work together in that sense of the movie, but like when you're taking your characters, I'm saying I understand what they're doing. Where it's like if you have one super tattooed, since they're codependent person. Actually, I can't even say they're codependent. Harley Quinn is completely dependent on Joker, which is one thing actually that drives me. I'm going to go deeper and deeper.
No,
into
you're
the
good.
hole
You're
here.
good.
That drives me nuts because everyone's like, oh, I'm on dating apps, I'm single right now. And all these girls are like, oh, I want the Joker to my Harley. I'm like, you want to be in an abusive relationship with a clown? Like, that makes zero sense. Like, they have a terrible relationship. And it's all just romanticized by people now. And I think that's kind of why they made such a point of them matching in Suicide Squad. They're like, oh, everyone loves this relationship. We'll make them look... We'll make them look exactly the same. They both have tattoos. And it was too much.
But why? Again, like I said before, why change the look? You have the look made. She didn't even wear. She wasn't. It
was her first appearance on film. They didn't need to change anything.
I mean,
they didn't need to change a single thing. I'm with you on that.
I think they show her costume. They show her normal costume at one point.
Do they?
I think she opens it and she puts on again this Did they do it for sex appeal reasons? They could have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Margot Robbie's hot. I'm not mad at her in those outfits.
Personality wise, I think she did a very good job. I mean, I'm watching the Harley Quinn cartoon on DC.
Oh my god, that show's amazing.
It's really good.
That show is phenomenal.
But then you watch it, I'm like, all they had to do was mimic this. Like,
Yeah.
whoever wrote this, cartoon series is killing it. I don't remember who did it off the top of my
the
head.
new Birds of Prey, the new Harley Quinn movie?
Not yet.
It's got moments. You know who's actually really good in it is Ewan McGregor. Actually, really sells his part
Black
as
Mask.
Black Mask. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting like how that all works. And again, I don't know. Hopefully do I think you can reboot her character right now and be like, okay, we're gonna take all the.
I think she's too popular for them to do it.
Yeah,
I think they're just going to do one of those. I mean, DC does have the shenanigans card with Flash, where they can just pull literally a flashpoint whenever they want and be like, "Oh, this is different now because Barry ran back in time, and like now we can pull all these universes together," which is the same shenanigans move they've used in comic books for decades.
The Flashpoint paradox, pretty much.
Well, not even just the Flashpoint, but the crisis. There's the final crisis, the crisis on Infinite Earths. There's all these different crises, or something that Flash did, where he went back and tickled a butterfly, and then the butterfly caused a hurricane in Gotham, all kinds of shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they go about again all this, moving forward. I finally got around to watching the Joker movie, and I kind of pushed that
I still
off.
haven't seen that yet.
I've kind of pushed that off. We could talk about that after you watch it. We'll put another episode about that.
Which I am going to apologize to her because that probably comes off as bad as we're both comic book fans on the comic book podcast and we haven't seen one of the more celebrated movies of the year. But I will say, for myself personally, I'm suffering from a little bit of comic book movie burnout after
I can see
Avengers
that.
Endgame. And I wasn't fully sold on the concept of Joker without Batman being in there at all. Like, I didn't want to see a Joker origin story. I prefer my Joker to be that random, making it up as he goes, kind of like the way he was in The Dark Knight, where he had multiple backstories. He's like, I'm going to tell you whatever you want to hear, basically, whatever fits my mood right now. That's the kind of Joker I prefer. I don't want that established backstory where he's like, oh, this is the tragic thing that happened to me, and then I, fell into madness, and now I laugh at everything. It's just, I don't want to. He's not a character that I want to feel some kind of human connection with. He's someone I want to be fascinated by, but also horrified by.
I think with you saying that, you need to watch the movie, and we need to talk about another episode.
All right,
because
so next episode, I'll watch it after this.
Because it definitely does a lot of things that kind of throw away everything that you know about the Joker, and it's like, okay, it's definitely. We'll talk about it another time.
Right. We'll put that on the table for next one. I'll watch it after this.
And I guess, I mean, in a sense of talking about why they don't cast characters the proper way, has there anybody you felt that they casted obviously the right way? Because I know, going back to Batman, I think that they've casted a good. I don't think that they've really ever casted a good Bruce Wayne and Batman together. I think they've either done someone that looks really good as Batman and someone that's really good as Bruce Wayne. And I'm going to say something right now that I'm probably getting a lot of shit for. I think George Clooney as Bruce Wayne's look works.
I agree with you, actually, because I always thought George Clooney, before Robert Downey Jr. got casted, I thought George Clooney would have been a great Iron Man. Like that playboy kind of billionaire attitude that both Tony Stark and, to an extent, Bruce Wayne are supposed to have. I could see him pulling that vibe off very well.
Yeah.
At least in the 90s, I could have. I don't know about now. As far as your boy, The Dark Knight, goes, though, I truly believe, and I'm probably going to catch a ton of shit for this, that Ben Affleck was the best we've had so far. I think he suffered from absolute terrible writing, but he looked the most apart. I think he was solid as Bruce Wayne. And I think if he had been given a better script and a better costume, I absolutely hate the costume in both of his Batman movies. I couldn't stand it. But I think if they had just updated it just a little bit, given him a little bit more to work with, it wouldn't have been a question. Because the one thing, when I think Batman, I'm like, he's going to break somebody's arm. Like, you don't answer his question, he's breaking your arm, no question. That warehouse scene in Dawn of Justice was incredible. I felt like I was playing the Arkham series of video games where he's like, he's jumping around, he's pulling boxes onto people, he's, punching him in the face with the cape stun. He definitely murdered 6 of them. Like, 6 of those guys aren't getting back up, which is not Batman's normal thing. But it looked like Batman. I felt like I was watching Batman. And I'm going to come out and say it right now. Robert Pattinson needs to step up. The fact that this kid's not working out because, like, I don't want to, what do you say? I don't want to propagate, like, the stereotype that people need to have perfect bodies. Like, okay, that's a fair point. But we're not talking about your little Twilight movie. Like, we're talking about Batman, like a guy who literally gets by on his wits and his muscles. He needs to be in shape. If you're playing Green Lantern, go to Dairy Queen every day, have a tub of lard. I don't care. Green Lantern can be fat because it's powered by a ring. Iron Man can be fat. a lot of heroes like don't need to be in shape. No, I'm not saying Robert Pattinson's fat by any means. I'm just saying like Batman is one of the few people you can't get away with not being in ridiculous shape. Like you need to be physically, I don't know, he's got to be physically imposing. You know what I mean? Like he's creeping up on people in a dark alley. If he's like, 6'2", 175, I'm not really scared of that guy. I'm like, all right, I could probably take him. Like, I'll pull his cape really quick and he'll probably trip and I can run away. Like, it doesn't matter if he showed up in some souped up car.
I mean, his suit too is a little.
His suit looks like trash.
It's a little rough.
Yeah, and the cape's gonna be CGI because he's Spawn now.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, it's a living cape. Like what?
That's definitely strange. Going back to the as you said before about Ben Affleck. Again, I wasn't a big fan when I first heard it. I still not. I
wasn't a big fan when I heard it either.
I mean, I guess if you want to say he's good at the role, I guess you can look at it in the sense of like, is he good in the role? And if you look at Batman as being like Frank Miller's like Dark Knight Returns, like when he's older.
Which is what they were going for, but also I still have this. That whole movie made like no sense because if you look at.
We're talking about Dawn of Justice, right?
If you look at Dawn of Justice and then you go to Justice League, there's a line that's carried over in there that he says something in Dawn of Justice about like, if there's a 1% chance that he's not who he says he is, and we have to take every action to stop him immediately. And then literally the next movie, he's like, if there's a 1% chance we can save Clark, we have to absolutely take him. Like, hold on, what? Like, and like it was shenanigans that he even found out that there was a machine that could bring people back to life on the Kryptonian ship. Because why would there be? Like, why is anyone dead on that ship ever if they have a way to bring people back? Like, I have my issues with Justice League, so that's why I'll reserve it for the Snyder Cut conversation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So you're saying you're going to go in, you're going to say that as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, you're going to go with. You're going to go that Ben Affleck takes both of them.
I don't think anyone's done it perfectly yet, but I am going to give it to him. I personally think for this movie,
if you could combine two different actors.
If I'm going to give it one actor for both.
Okay, either one. If you can either combine two or one actor, you're going to say Ben Affleck takes the...
I think you give Ben Affleck a true Batman script. If you give Ben Affleck a true Batman script, he knocks it out of the park.
I think you're fucking out of your mind.
You can think I'm out of my mind, but I think he would. I really think he would be the one to, like, take it to the house. And I thought there's a lot of things they did with Batman in the movie that just didn't need to be done. Like, he was already Batman for 20 years at that point, which, like... That's too old.
It's the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, but it's like, wait. Just like give it you can literally make a Batman movie and a Batman versus Superman movie, and then maybe he loses, and then after Justice League, a year or two later, you come out with like, it's a Flash to the future. Pardon me.
I mean,
a Flash to the future, and then you do like this. I've been Batman for 20 years. Like maybe he's got a cane or something, and he's like, I've got to stop Clark. Like just something where it just makes more sense and progression as of just like, okay, we just met, but I hate you, and then our moms have the same name. Spoilers, sorry.
Yep.
So we're gonna stop fighting.
I mean, again, I'm gonna still say that you're full of shit and that you're out of your fucking mind for thinking that. I mean, again, I think we've seen so many different Bruce Waynes. We've seen, in the movie standpoint, we're gonna start from Michael Keaton aspect, who's a dork.
Yeah, Keaton's a classic. It's almost like you can't touch Keaton because of nostalgia. I don't care who you're talking to. Like, Michael Keaton was the best.
I think his suit's great. I think the Batman suit in those movies are fantastic.
Oh no, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Michael Keaton. I'm just saying it's tough to have this conversation sometimes because people get super defensive just because he was their first Batman.
Yeah, we can have a whole other episode on this. So we'll end it in a sense of like to be continued.
Fair, but I do want to hold on. Wait, right before we go though, who's your Bruce Wayne? Who's your Batman?
Bruce Wayne, I'm going to stick with look-wise. I'm going to stick with the George Clooney look. Again, I'm not saying the movie is good at all. I'm not saying the Batsuit was good at all on that, but is his look as Batman? I will say, or Bruce Wayne. I will say yes. I think he is the closest thing to like
comic accurate.
Yeah, Batman Year One type stuff, and so on and so forth. As the Batman himself, who I think probably has the best look, I mean, I do think Michael Keaton's Batman suit is one of the best, so I really like that look, and I'm gonna probably stick with that.
Yeah, makes sense with the I can't turn my neck.
Yeah, I think it does the comics a lot of justice too. So, again, as for some of the shittier things we've said before, Venom and Spider-Man 3, rough. I don't know.
Nothing hurt my soul more than that. You know what? What's terrible is like he could have gotten away with playing like Peter Parker. Like
Who,
Topher Grace could have got away with playing Peter Parker in my book, but like as Venom, I was just like, who the hell was in this room? Have they never seen Eddie Brock? Where Eddie Brock in the comics was like benching 500 pounds, which is damn near a superhuman feat in and of itself. And then this guy gets the symbiote, and he's just like filled with rage for the greatest superhero on the face of the planet. And he's constantly going at him, showing up, just torturing him as much as he can. And I didn't get that from Topher Grace at all. Like, I didn't even get the filled with rage part. He just seemed like a whiny little bitch.
Well, he's only in it as Venom for maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, and even then,
maybe,
it's like, and it's, oh man, and one of the things that pissed me off the most in that movie, he doesn't say, "We are Venom" once, which I know Sam Raimi didn't really want to include Venom in the film. Like, that was a source of contention between him and the studio, where the studio's like, we want him, and he's like, I want to do Sandman. Which, as a director, you've got to think this is a multi-million-dollar franchise, one of the highest-grossing movies at the time. Like, maybe take a step back, do Venom this movie, and do Sandman for the next one. That's just me. I agree. I wasn't in the rooms. I didn't know. But I digress. I think it was a very poor creative decision the way they cast Venom in those movies. Because if you're going to do it right. Like, look at the comics, see what the fans want, and, like, kind of cater to that. As opposed to just having this guy who's being a whiny bitch, doesn't have any of his classic lines, doesn't have that classic scary mystique, just kind of looks like a lame ripoff of Spider-Man, as opposed to being the classic terrifying character we all wanted.
Yeah, and that movie also had a shit ton of villains in it, I think. Didn't it have
it was
3,
way
4?
too overstuffed. And like they tried to finally wrap up Harry's story where he was like the new Goblin, but he just looked like a snowboarder. And then he was like, he had amnesia, but he didn't. And like he was like House of Pie, and just like, oh, so good. And like that, the whole thing.
Yeah, it wasn't their best move.
That movie, the whole movie was a misfire. And I remember being very disappointed when I walked out. Like, that was a heartbreaker for me. Like, that, because Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite movies ever. I was like, oh, Spider-Man 3, we're going to see Venom, we got this, we got Sandman. And I walked and was like, wow, this is bad.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know, I think, and I think, too, you got to look at that movie as well and say, like, why make, you know, Spider-Man Peter Parker, who the hell is his name?
Eddie Brock?
No, who played Spider-Man in that?
Oh, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, like, he's more emo than ever. And again, I'm sure a million people
his
talk.
Little dance moves, like,
everyone's probably talked about this. It's been heard of a million times, you know. And you know, it's just it wasn't really, again, as castings. It seems like, to sum this up, you know, I would just like to see them stick a little more, be a little more true to the characters that we all have grown up reading and love, and you know, stick with what has already been done. It's printed for you. You know, it's
you have
it's
a
here.
blueprint. Like, you can mess around a little bit. Just follow the main part of the story. Like, there's a reason people love these books. Just have respect for your core fan base. Like, instead of trying to cater to millions, make a really good movie for the people who are going to appreciate it, and trust that word of mouth is going to spread and other people are going to come, bring themselves in, and then become fans of the work as well.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did that too with the Avengers. I don't want to talk too much about that again. The Avengers movies, like,
about Phase 4.
you know, they took a big, you know, they took a lot of. I think maybe Chris Hemsworth was his first major acting role.
It was
his first.
He was in Star Trek before that, and he was in Red Dawn, which didn't really get a wide release. I think that might have gone straight to DVD.
No, it went on. It went.
Oh, it did go.
It was in theaters, yeah, for a hot second.
That's
but
no
you know,
disrespect to Chris Hemsworth, friend of the show, huge
yeah,
fan.
there you go.
Huge
you know,
fan. He is actually my favorite Avenger. I do love Chris Hemsworth.
You know, I think that they took a chance. They stuck to the source material that was originally presented in you know, the comic books, and then they kind of ran with it. Yeah, obviously they switched up you know, in Infinity War, because Infinity Gauntlet, the book, is
oh man,
that's another topic.
That's what I was gonna say. That might be episode 3 or 4 right there. That's
that book is definitely interesting, and it would have been interesting to wrap this up. How, if the X-Men were involved in this, how different that end story would have been.
I'm very curious. We might need to actually queue this up for another issue too. Guesses and estimations of what they're going to do for Phase 4 for introducing the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Because I'm sure you have theories on that too.
100%.
I definitely have a few myself.
And going for our last topic today, will we ever see a new breakthrough comic book hero or villain? So pretty much right around the time of COVID all happening back in April. So Marvel put a third of its comics on hold due to coronavirus, and DC recently canceled The Terrifics, is wrapping up Harley Quinn, and canceled, I believe they canceled Supergirl, and they're actually doing The Terrifics and Supergirl as digital onlys, and I know a lot of people are giving some
Interesting.
backlash about that because they're not printing. They canceled and they're wrapping up something else again. I forget what I read today, but going that they're canceling these smaller books and everything like that, and even as big as Harley Quinn, who's probably the number one reason why people have DC Universe.
That's
the
the only reason to have that app.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as I'm
it's a
concerned,
fantastic.
yeah.
They're obviously going to bring her back probably in the fall. I'm sure it'll be like Harley Quinn.
Well, it's like
reboot.
season 2 came out at lightning speed.
Yeah.
Like season 1 came out November. Season 2 was out in April, which I was like, damn.
There was probably like a month break, I would say, if that.
It's crazy. I bet, like the fact that they even wrote it that fast.
Well, it's funny when you first turned that on. Back when I first watched it, it actually said 24 episodes, and then it stopped at I think
Really?
it stopped at 12.
Oh,
and
okay,
I was
so
like,
they
what the
knew.
hell?
Okay, that makes sense.
So they kind of had it done, but being that they're doing this, and you could even say that with DC and Marvel, some of it's just convoluted, and they have too much shit, and they definitely need to step back on it. I mean, they put Stargirl. Stargirl out came out last week. I mean, I did watch the first episode.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys. I don't know. I get it.
Yeah,
I think I understand what they're trying to do with it, but at the same time, like, you're canceling these comics and these whatnot, but you're bringing out some of these shows that no one really gives a fuck about. So to me, I'm like, will we ever see another breakthrough new hero or villain by either DC or Marvel?
I think it's tough because Marvel especially. You're the DC guy. I'm the Marvel guy. Marvel right now is going through a very big PC phase, which I'm honestly not that big a fan of because I feel like they're focused more on. This is weird to describe. They're focused almost more on their characters' background and diversity than they are the actual character themselves. Which, don't get me wrong, as a person of color, it's awesome to see that. Like, Spider-Man's been my favorite hero forever. To see someone like Miles Morales swinging around alongside him is awesome. Like, that's cool. It's something I never thought I would see. But when you're focused purely on creating someone for a diverse background and then just kind of shoehorning them into comics, I have an issue with it because part of what's always made Marvel great is that they have these complex and rich characters that have, stuff going on. So when you're just someone's like, it's a gay, black orphan, like, boom, like now you're in a comic book. Like I worry that they're going to go too far with it sometimes.
Who's that?
It's just something I made up off my head.
Oh, I was like, wait. I literally just kind of pulled that
out of my head. No, that's not anything specific. I just worry that they're doing that a little bit too much. And in doing so, I think they kind of run the risk of just oversaturating. Like, recently, I think you had, and again, nothing wrong with this by any means. I just kind of wish they would make new characters instead of adapting and changing characters that people have been reading for years. Because you have Thor Became a Woman, which is actually a very well-written storyline. That was actually very well done where Jane Foster takes up the hammer. Spoiler, sorry. Miles Morales, I think, was well done. I think the new Miss Marvel's actually doing pretty well, and that actually could be, that was my original point with this, she might be the next breakout character. She's going to be heavily featured in the Avengers game coming out, which I'm not super looking forward to playing as her. I'm probably going to spend most of my time as Thor in that game.
If you can do that.
If I can do that. But I do think it's nice that they're taking a chance on a new young character. I just wish she had, honestly, just a different name. Like, why give her that Miss Marvel background when you have an entirely new character in Kamala Khan that you could create something entirely new, give her a new name, and not have her living in kind of an existing character's shadow? I think I should have worded that better that way from the beginning. But, yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think that it's tough. When you have such a, obviously, comics have been going on since the 20s essentially, and when you have so many other people that have been written and villains and heroes, it's like, do you go back to somebody that was from like that no one really remembers and put them out there and pray that no one says, oh, this guy was actually in this before? Or do you start from the ground up and try to put somebody else?
I feel like you're better starting from the ground up. Like, look how many characters we got, out of the 90s that took off. I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind for me is Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like, that's a character that was made from the ground up. Yes, granted, he borrowed Wolverine's powers technically, but he's doing something completely different with them. Like, Deadpool, I'd say at this point, is independent, of the Wolverine legacy, and that's more of what I'd like to see. Like, it's okay, sometimes it works sometimes, but other times it's like, there's two Spider-Men now. There's Captain Marvel and there's Miss Marvel, but at one point they shared the same name. There's what's his face is dead as Hulk. wow, why can I not think of his name?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, what's his name is dead as Hulk, and Amadeus Cho took over.
I'm not.
Again,
Marvel's out of my
this
out of my
is
realm
very
here.
embarrassing to me. Jesus, because I'm thinking of I'm thinking Mark Ruffalo. I'm like, why can I not just think of his actual character name, which is terrible as a comic book fan, but whatever. There's bright lights. I'm blanking out.
Yeah, there's definitely bright lights. And this is our first recording of anything, of any of the shows. This is number
true.
one.
This is number one. So
there's
forgive us a little bit here.
A lot of technical issues, probably a lot of mistakes. And you've hit the mic like 4 times already.
That's true. I did. I keep smacking it.
And I think you smacked in the first. I think you smacked in the first 5 seconds. So there's gonna be a couple thuds here and there. Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see if we ever see someone kind of break through. I mean, I think they tried that even in the. Was Blade the 90s? Blade might have been the 90s.
Blade's been around for a while, though. But what's interesting is when they brought the Blade movie to screen, he had a slightly different set of powers. He didn't traditionally have, he was just immune to vampire bites. He didn't have all their strengths and none of their weaknesses. That was something they did for the movie, which I was surprised by, yeah.
Which they might have carried over to the video games, too. I'm not too
I think
sure.
now it's just part of his persona. The movies were so popular, which how has it taken them this long to capitalize on that? When there was the height of vampire movies, early to mid 2000s,
the Twilight stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, mid to late 2000s, because they made Blade 3, which was trash.
That was really
bad. It's easy to make a Blade movie. It's so easy. You write a vampire movie, and then you throw a vampire hunter in there. Boom, just have Blade murder everyone.
I mean, they have again. I'm a huge. Just so everyone knows, I'm a big action figure collector, statue collector, and between Mezco and Sideshow Hot Toys, all that stuff, and Mezco has put out 2 Blade figures within the past, I would say, year maybe. So maybe they're hitting at something. Maybe they're coming back. Maybe.
Well, no, they are. They had cast Mahershala. I might have butchered his first name. Mahershala Ali. He just got cast as him probably about a year ago.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they really moved. They're doing that in the movie, or they're doing a TV series.
I'm not sure. I think it would be cool to have a Blade TV series personally.
It probably would go better. It would probably handle better, in that sense. Because again, like we said earlier, when you have so much, when you expect people to know so much about certain characters, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Like I said, Maximum Carnage earlier, if you don't know half these characters, you're like, who?
Why would you? Because a lot of this was, I feel like they kind of hand-fisted a lot of the characters in Maximum Carnage, and there'd be maybe someone will pick up, maybe everyone's going to be a big fan of Nightwatch, who is honestly a terrible name.
Yeah, I don't know why I literally thought. I was like, why is Spawn in this book?
He's a blatant rip off of Spawn.
And then they said Nightwatch. I was like, oh, here we go again. And and even Spawn. I know I think they casted Spawn finally. They're supposed to put out a movie.
Jamie Foxx, I thought now, right?
Is that for real?
I thought so.
That'll be. I mean,
I've got mixed feelings on Jamie Foxx. I love him in some stuff, and I don't like him in others. I will say, Baby Driver, I've watched 3 or 4 times, and he's phenomenal in that.
But he already played
Electro.
Why?
You can play more than one superhero. I have no issue with that.
I have no issue with that.
Do have vision. Look at Chris Evans. You're gonna tell me somebody could have done a better job as Captain America?
No.
And he was still pretty accurate as Human Torch too. He was one of the better parts of those movies.
You already got your time. Go move on to somebody else. Hugh Jackman was a nobody before Wolverine.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman, to be fair, was a little bit miscast. If we're going to talk about not casting characters the proper way, Wolverine in the books, I believe, is 5'3". Yeah, he's not. You're taller than Wolverine.
Maybe by an inch. I mean, he's got me in size.
Yeah, Wolverine. But yeah, he's just this tiny jack. He's like an actual Wolverine. He's this tiny jack dude who's remarkably resilient and incredibly deadly.
Yeah, and I mean, sex appeal. Like we said, sometimes
sex sells.
Sometimes
the women loved it. It is funny looking at, if you look at him in X-Men 1 versus him in
Logan,
X3 or Logan. Yeah, he's jacked in all the later, Days of Future Past. He's ripped out of his mind.
Yeah, he's
X-Men 1, he's it's oh yeah, I do some push-ups.
He kind of looked like, I guess, Christian Bale in Dark Knight and Batman Begins. He wasn't that big.
Christian Bale
wasn't that big.
I mean, he was pretty big. He was it was weird though because he was puffy. I'm gonna steal that quote from Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. It's Rambo 1, he a little puffy. Rambo 2, he come back shredded. That's you right now. That's pretty much the way I look at Christian Bale in the Batman movies. He was a little bit puffy. He was big. You weren't gonna fight him, but he was more puffy than.
But he wasn't as big as he should have been.
No, fair.
He was not. His upper body was not as big as he should have been.
While we're on the subject, and I'm gonna if I catch anything in this podcast, it's gonna be for this. Everyone says Christian Bale's like, oh, that's my favorite Batman. That's my favorite Batman. I'm like, what did he really bring to the part? When you watch any of those movies, odds are 9 times out of 10 you're talking about the villain. Batman Begins was a good movie, but no one was like, oh, you remember that part where Batman fought that guy? Like, what's the most memorable part of Batman Begins to you?
Probably the scene when Scarecrow throws they're in the warehouse.
Yeah, and he like hits him with the
Yeah,
but it's
that's
not
probably
like
about
it's
it.
not like Batman fighting. It's not Batman detecting shit.
No,
that's the world's
absolutely
greatest
not.
detective. Like Christian Bale's a great actor, but I think he was a bit wasted on the part because he never really got to. I never felt like I was watching Batman. I was like, okay, Christian Bale's doing something. I was like, oh shit, and Joker's back. Like Heath Ledger, it's a disconnect for me. Whereas I'm watching Christian Bale as Batman, I'm like, that's Christian Bale's Batman.
He brought the best Batman voice. He had
Are
the
you
best.
sure?
He had the
Like
best. he had the best Batman
It's
voice.
absolutely crazy to me how that, but that's what I'm saying. That's the legacy for the part because you talk about Batman Begins. It's a good movie, but it's a little bit forgettable. You know what I mean? It's like okay, I'll watch it on. But like Dark Knight, phenomenal, but entirely driven by Heath Ledger. You're just waiting for him to be on the scene again. You're hanging on every single word that Heath Ledger says when he's in that clown makeup. Dark Knight Rises is, oh yes, it's all about Bane because Bane's completely absurd and it somehow works in the context of the movie.
And you could say, I mean, again, they'll never cast a good Bane, I guess, because Bane is huge.
Yeah.
You know, was he the right if in a sense of, and I'll kind of leave this at this, in a sense of realism, the Bane worked.
Yes. But the voice is ridiculous, and it's I've watched the cut on YouTube where it's just Bane talking. It's all his lines from the movie, and it's hysterical. It makes me laugh.
The Harley Quinn cartoon kind of makes fun of it, I think.
Oh, it's amazing what they do with that. I
'cause
lost the first time Bane shows up in the Harley Quinn
voice is
cartoon.
high.
I lost it.
He definitely has a high pitched voice in that cartoon. But that's really it. I think we pretty much ran through it all and nailed this first thing with with some technical difficulties and things that we obviously have to work on.
Apologies for the learning curve, everyone, but we're going to be back in better round 2.
Yeah, give us like another month or two.
Yeah,
and we'll be going. You know, again, we have a bunch of other shows. We're working on the Alpha Beta Gold, which will be talking about video games. We have 4th and 1, which you and Sean are going to be doing with sports.
Once we get sports
fantasy.
back,
Once
we have something to talk about.
I know he's pretty excited about that and getting that, ball rolling. We have a music podcast we're working on with a good friend of mine, Jimmy Franklin, one of the best guitar players I think I've ever seen in my fucking life. Definitely check him out. And we just have a bunch of great stuff that we're hopefully going to be putting together. Thanks everyone for listening and checking us out. You can find us on Instagram.com/YMINerdOfficial, Facebook.com/YMINerd. Again, I'm Camryn James, the golden voice himself.
Matt Ferreira. Happy
There
to be
you go.
here.
And until next time, we're out.